Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Hate Group and Joy of SharePoint webinar. We are illuminating Microsoft 365. Today, we're going to explore the possibilities of the Outlook web application. And I'm going to be honest with y'all because you know me, I know you, right? Used to Outlook web app was the last place I went for email. Today marks about 2.5 weeks that I have done an Outlook desktop detox. Yes, I am 100% in the Outlook web application, and I like it. So we're going to share about how it's awesome. Richard is going to be taking the lead because I'm a newbie at it, I'll confess, and we're going to talk about the awesomeness. Yeah, it's all right. I'll own it. But for those of you that may be new, my name is Joy Apple. I am Joy of SharePoint. I'm a modern workplace strategist and trainer at Hate Group. I've been doing all this fun Microsoft stuff for 12 years now. I need to up the ticker on my slide. 12 years now. When I'm not doing modern workplace strategery, I'm probably doing a webinar like this. And I'm so glad you're here with me and my work twin, Richard. Richard, how are you?
I just made that change. I'm doing well, thank you. I just made that change right there on the fly. So 12 years. So thanks, Joy. Yeah, welcome everybody. As Joy mentioned, we are workplace role twins here at Pate. We're both modern workplace strategists, which means we live, sleep, eat, breathe everything related to Microsoft 365 collaboration and productivity, etc. And that's why we wanted to have these series of webinars that we're bringing to you. Hopefully you guys have attended some of them in the past. If you haven't, please feel free to go to the Pate website and just register for any of those webinars, and you can actually find the content also on YouTube as well from previous sessions. But today, yeah, we're going to kind of dive into a topic that, you know, this may or may not be something that you're super interested in because it's mail and calendar, and, you know, it's just a part of our day-to-day jobs. It's things that we have to do. We have to know what's going on every day in terms of our schedule. And let's face it, email isn't going anywhere anytime soon, even though we all love Microsoft Teams. We've talked a lot about Microsoft Teams over the past several weeks as well, too. So if you are just looking to see, you know, what are these guys talking about in Outlook on the web, and as Joy mentioned, you know, maybe it's something that you don't even think about much anymore because you just crack open the Outlook desktop app first thing when you fire up your machine, first thing in the morning. We just want to give you an opportunity to look at how things have changed. And I tend to say to customers, you know, this is not your grandfather's Outlook on the web anymore. This is a very, very extremely rich, well-integrated set of experiences running through the browser. So we're going to spend quite a bit of time talking about that here today. What we often do, or always do, I should say, is we want to start off with a little bit of a poll. We just want to know a few things about you. So you can get to this poll a couple of different ways. There should be a link in the Q&A panel that you can get access to be able to just sign in and, or not sign in, but to just log to this page and then start filling it out. You also, if you have your camera available handy, you can also just point it right here at this QR code, and it'll just pop open this poll also in your mobile device. But just a couple of things we just always ask, you know, we want to know who's in the audience today. We want to get an understanding if you do or don't use Outlook on the web, actually, if you have had a chance to look at it all lately, or if you only use it sometimes. And then Joy educated me that today is in fact Bill and Ted Day. I didn't know it was today, but I did see the trailer came out today, which is cool. And just want to know, you know, hey, if you plan to go see it, or if you plan to watch it when it's available, how good do you think it's going to be? And so let's just take a look and see some of the responses we've got going here, because it's always nice to know who's who in the room.
Are you going to go see the new Bill and Ted movie when it comes out? Or
I will definitely watch it. Whether or not I'll get an opportunity to go to a movie theater to see is always the question.
That's a good point. The go might be an issue.
Yeah, but I will definitely watch it. So, okay, so we've got a couple of responses coming in so far. We got 2 or 3. Got some IT pros in the room, some folks from management, which is great. Thanks for joining us again. Do you use Outlook on the web? Sometimes, but only when I have to. Okay, sure, totally get that. sorry for the background noise. The garbage collection truck is going by right at this very moment. And then in terms of how good you think it's going to be, totally focus. Yeah, you know.
Oh no!
We'll see. I'm a Keanu
Put
Reeves.
that QR code up. Let me vote. Hang on. No. Come on.
Let's get that vote. Let's get that poll in there with a little more balance.
Fix that.
Right? A little more balance on there.
I'm doing it right now as we speak. I'm
Okay.
voting.
A little bit of refresh here. Yeah, do it. Do it. Let's get the poll.
Am I an IT professional? Yes, it's great. Sometimes I used to be, and only when I have to. I'll confess it. Okay, there. Let my voice be heard.
All right, outstanding. Yes. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for that again. Feel free to answer the poll questions at any point along the way during the webinar. You can just go to that link again, just fill it out. So we're happy to get those responses from you. It's always interesting to know what people are and aren't using at the moment. Okay, so going back to the presentation here, you know, I'm going to do just one quick slide just to say Outlook on the web. It's that utility that in the past we kind of thought more of. Well, if by chance I don't have the ability to get to my device that has the Outlook desktop app on it, how would I get to my mail? Well, I think most people today tend to think, well, I'm just going to get my phone out, because almost everybody gets their phone connected to mail kind of first and foremost at their organization, assuming that your company allows it. So then that's kind of choice number two, but then maybe choice number three is, if I don't have my laptop with Outlook, if I don't have my phone for some strange reason, that as long as I can get to some place that has a browser and I can actually log in to my mail through the browser, then I'll go to Outlook, what they call Outlook on the web. Funny name in my opinion. I think they call everything else something online, Word online, Excel online, SharePoint online. To me, they should have just called it Outlook online, but hey, they call it Outlook on the web. But, you know, as Joy mentioned, I actually, just for my workflow, for the way that I send, receive, triage email, work with my calendar, and then even some other really kind of interesting integrated experiences. For me, I personally, I use Outlook on the web almost exclusively. I know there are going to be countless people out there that will probably say, nope, no chance, no way, I've got to use Outlook. I've got very specific things that I do in Outlook, and they only work in the desktop app, and that's cool. And as far as I'm concerned, that's cool. But what we did want to do is, again, just show you some things. If you haven't, you know, give it a test drive in a while, you might be surprised. And there are a number of experiences kind of from the whole artificial intelligence and machine learning side of things that, at least at the moment, are really only in Outlook on the web, that you don't really get in the desktop app. So think about that. That's something different, right? Usually it's the other way around. Usually we're always just gonna get the cool capabilities in the desktop tools, and you don't really ever think about it coming first to the web side of things. But that's all changed now with cloud.
Can I confess something, Richard?
Yeah, please do.
You want to know what got me? I don't know. I don't know the right word to say, but why I decided to move away from my Outlook desktop application.
Why is that?
It stopped working. And I didn't want to take the time to troubleshoot, because let's be real. Oh, there's my cat. Hi, that's great. But we all know that it takes time to troubleshoot apps. I was like, oh, I could do an uninstall, I could do a reinstall, I could do a fix it, I could do it. I was like,
yeah.
Or fine, I'll just launch the web application, and that'll be where I live. And you know, one of the awesome things about the new version of Edge is you can take a web page and make it an app.
That's right.
Rock on, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, folks, it's not just Richard saying this, because he's kind of was my motivation to go, I won't troubleshoot it. Richard says it's cool. I've been using the mobile app on my phone instead of the built-in mail app for over a year.
Yeah.
Fine. If Richard says, I'll trust my coworker and I'll do it. I'm not regretting it, and I haven't gone back to take time to troubleshoot because it's doing great.
That's great.
So there's a Joy of SharePoint endorsement, if that's worth anything.
Excellent. Yes, in the spirit of Bill and Ted. That's right. I'm always happy to hear if somebody actually finds some value in some of the things that I find valuable in this case. So Outlook on the web is, you know, like you said, it's one of those where people have been using Outlook for so long, they just think to themselves, how could I possibly use any other tool than that? But again, let's just talk about some of these things. So got a demo environment going here, and just kind of a reminder for those of you maybe that haven't launched to this page before, unfamiliar with launching to this page. This is what they call the Office 365 homepage. If you open up your browser and you go to office.com and then you sign in with your work account, it'll take you to a page that looks something like this. All these different apps that you see up here on the top. And then, of course, over in the left-hand side from the app launcher, same set of apps. That's going to be dependent entirely on to what you have access, so what you've been licensed to use from your Office 365 or Microsoft 365 subscription. But good chance are every single one of you is at the very least going to have Outlook inside of this list of apps. So let's just kind of start with that here, because again, that's what we're talking about here today is Outlook on the web. So again, if you haven't looked at this in a while, you might be a little bit surprised kind of right out of the gate. Just it looks a lot more streamlined than it ever did before, kind of in previous versions, all the way back to BPAWS and Office 365 when it kind of was in 2007, 2010, 2013 timeframe. It is extremely feature rich because of the fact that, again, modern web browsers give us all these capabilities that we have. Such as, for example, you all know that you've got this notion of a focused inbox here. That, again, is powered by the cloud. So Office 365 is, over time, learning about your email patterns and then determining what it believes to be the email messages that would be most relevant to you and the ones that maybe are less relevant to you at any given point in time. It's not moving it to junk. It's just simply kind of moving it out of the way. And again, this concept is not unique to Microsoft. Google's been doing this kind of stuff in Gmail for a long time as well, too, kind of categorizing mail based on these various tabs. But one thing that you can't do as easily in the desktop app that you can do really easily right here in Outlook on the web is just simply kind of drag these emails around from tab to tab. So if this email is not as important to me and I want to move it from focus to other, I can just click and drag it over here into other, and then it's as simple as that. Okay, I can also go the other way around if I'm here on other, and wait a minute, I really did want one of these emails here, whichever one that was, and I want to move it back over into focus. I can just drag them around. So again, a lot of that is just possible because, again, modern web browsers, quite honestly, are just really, really rich in terms of their capability. So dragging and dropping around is really super easy to do. Something else that you can also do at the moment, at least only in Outlook on the web that you can't in the desktop app, is this notion of being able to pin emails to the top. So, again, for those of you that have been following us long in our Teams webinars, you've certainly seen us a number of times talk about how you can pin channels and so on and so forth, and you can favorite, or you can make your teams shown versus hidden, and so those can again kind of show more relevant information to you at some point in time. So in terms of emails as well too, let's say I've got an email way down here somewhere and I want to get back to that one. I just wanted to show to me quickly whenever I open up Outlook on the web. You've got this little notion right here of pinning. So when you click on that, it actually just pins it up to the top of your list. So you can take any number of these emails here and just pin them, and they always stay up there until you unpin them in this case. Okay, so that's pretty cool, I think, to be able to have this ability to pin and unpin email, if that's something that's going to help you be able to get back and forth from content relatively easily. And then there are some other, I mentioned some really cool kind of intelligent capabilities, and Microsoft is doing a whole lot more and more of this lately that they're bringing to the service. Again, some of this stuff is at the moment is exclusive to Outlook on the web. But as an example here, so if I got this email from a colleague, Nestor, for example, and in the body of the email, Nestor is saying to me, do you have time later to do something? Or, do you have an opportunity to meet with me later on? You notice that there are these things down here that are these suggested replies that show up. So this is pretty cool. Again, what's happening is the service is basically looking at the content that's being written, in this case here in the email, and then coming up with some very simple suggested replies that if you just wanted a one-click way, actually 2 clicks, one is to say, sure, what time, and the next one is to hit send, and boom, you're done, okay? So that's one example of some suggested replies in that case. Again, that's something that's exclusive to Outlook on the web at the moment. if you had another email, for example, where maybe in this case, this colleague is asking, can you please share with me or send to me the latest product overview slides? So you'll notice that in addition to some other specific suggested replies, there's a specific type of suggested reply that is a file attachment suggestion. So it also says, because she's asking, can you send me the latest slides in this case, it also suggests to attach a file. And so you got this ability right here without having to even think about where do I go to attach and so forth. It's suggesting attachments. Again, these are going to be based off of, in this case, kind of recently accessed files. So I recently accessed these numbers of files here. So it's going to show those to me, but I can easily go in and browse either from my desktop or from a cloud location to look for specific files in this case that I can add. But the ability to be able to have these suggested attachments, I think, also is really slick. Kind of also along the lines of when I'm engaging with colleagues in this case, and these are coworkers that I might be regularly interacting with through email. You know, there is a number of different things I can think of, especially, for example, hey Joy, I'm interacting with Joy and trying to prepare for this webinar, or you know, she and I want to collaborate on some deployment planning sessions and kind of talk about some best practices. And she sent me some stuff, or I've shared some stuff with her, or we've had some Teams conversations about it. Rarely, but maybe, we've had some email discussions back and forth about some things. So a number of different places where we might be interacting. So in Outlook on the web, you can actually get to a number of things that you've done with your colleagues recently relatively easily here right through Outlook. And the way that you do that is, so when you hover over any of your colleagues, you're going to get this profile card. Sometimes they call it a people card or a contact card. But when you hover over the user here in this case, this little card pops up automatically. You notice it's got a lot of really rich information in already. It's got kind of contact info and to whom Lydia reports in this case. And then you start seeing some other things like email and files and so forth. You're like, huh, there's some pretty interesting stuff here, but you can actually make this bigger. You can actually do that a number of ways. Hit show more, but if I hit, you know, just contact, for example, it's going to expand into this bigger profile card where now we've got some really interesting stuff going on. I'm just going to show you some of what's here. So again, kind of on the overview, you've got all of this really rich information about this colleague. And any of these fields, by the way, you can easily copy this information. So if I needed to copy that email, I can click on this right here and copy that info to my clipboard, go and paste that somewhere relatively easily. It also shows you the organization in this case. So it shows who Lydia works with and who her manager is and so forth. This is really useful in those organizations, again, where you're just trying to get oriented with who this person is and what role they have and where they sit in the org. But then check this out. Files here. So these are files that have been either recently shared between you and Lydia. Maybe they were shared through OneDrive. Maybe they were shared as email attachments. And then down here as well, too, here's some of these recent email conversations. That stuff also shows up in some of these other tabs. So in addition to all this here's some about me info about Lydia. So if you use your profile in Delve in this case to go in and update this info, this could show here to your colleagues. Here's that organization tab again. This is a very, very similar, if not almost identical view that you get when you go into the org view in Teams to see, again, who this person is and to whom they report. You can navigate around to kind of various people here. But then this is what I want to show. So again, here's files. So if you know that Lydia, or oftentimes Joy, she shared something with me recently, I can't remember where it is or where I got to it or so forth, you can, depending on, again, how you shared that content, you can come to this profile card, click on files, and then there you go. Like here is a whole set of recently shared files. And you can see from where they were shared, right? They were shared from SharePoint or shared from OneDrive, or in some cases, they don't have them in this list, but sometimes they were just attached to an email. And then here's the live preview of that content. You can actually filter them and so forth. It's pretty cool. Same thing for email as well, is I can come here and I can look at a fairly recent list of recent email between myself and Lydia in this case. And you can see I've been doing a whole lot of testing as of late here in this demo. But that's pretty slick. You know, the ability to be able to come into a singular view for a colleague. I'll just pull another one up so you just kind of get a same kind of sense here. Let's do Nestor, and let's just make this bigger to be able to see all files that I've shared or have been shared back and forth between this user and Nestor, and recent emails all in one view. That's pretty cool, I would say. So do you think, have you played around with that at all, Joy, or found some of that useful to you just yet?
I have, even as an Outlook on the Web newbie, I find some of that very useful, and I appreciate the consistency that Microsoft is placing for these types of features. I'm doing a lot of Teams training today, actually for the next 2 weeks, and the last 3 months. And if you're in Teams, you can click on activity with chat, right? And you can see all of the activity they've done in Teams you're together in, right? Same thing here. Here, obviously, it's going to be more email specific or file specific, but it's reducing that switching. I call it application hopscotch. I don't have to remember. I don't have to play hopscotch and go try to find it. The tool I'm in, if that's where we work together the most, right? I can get to that content there. And you can see there's a lot of years of experience and wish lists and use cases that Microsoft has put together into these products. And again, like you said, I don't think, maybe I'm lying, but I don't think I can do that on the desktop app.
No, at least not as of yet. And that doesn't mean that Microsoft Outlook team, desktop app team is not working on that, but you know, I'll just drag this over here to kind of give you an example. So, you know, here again is Megan's email in this case. And so here are those exact same emails. If I go to Nestor, then sure, here's Nestor. And yeah, I get this profile card that pops up, and I can even expand this card to see more things. But as you can see, it's not the same information. It's not, in my opinion, nearly as rich content here. Sure, maybe it shows me the membership of groups that Nestor belongs to, and that's interesting and so forth. But the ability to be able to get to the content that I've been interacting with this person, to me, that's just one of the huge advantages of doing that through Outlook on the web. So definitely different experience there. Okay, a couple of other things just to kind of point out, because I think they're interesting, is so when you are creating a new message here in Outlook, again, this is not necessarily unique to Outlook on the web, but the experience is just a little bit different in this case. When you're attaching files, again, you have that ability right off the bat, as you can see, is it gives you these suggested attachments. Again, these are going to be ones that you've likely just been working with or authoring recently, so that's the reason why it's saying maybe it suggests those to you. But you can also just browse your PC. If you do that, it's going to pop up Windows File Explorer just like you normally would expect. Or if you say browse cloud locations, that's where it's a bit interesting to me, because again, you've got this very rich experience here for OneDrive. Is probably a very common place that you might select one or more files that you want to be able to share with someone. So maybe I'm just sharing a PowerPoint with Joy, so I've got it in my OneDrive and I can easily use email to share it with her in this way. So recent is going to be, again, ones you've been working on recently. Files is going to be everything inside of your OneDrive site in this case. You could even share, again, files that have been shared with you. So if you have the permissions, and if the owner of that file has given you the permission to be able to share it with others, then files that were shared with you, you could also select those and share those through email. And then notice there's groups, which again, if you've all been following along, you know that it's kind of recently been changed to Microsoft 365 groups. But here are all a number of groups that, again, as you know, when you go into these groups, these are all going to have a SharePoint site that's connected to this group. And then here are all these different folders, and I can tell that this is a Teams connected SharePoint site because it's got this folder here called General. But you can go into any one of these folders here as well too. Just kind of double click your way in there, and then you can share files from SharePoint just as well too. Okay, so it's a really great experience in terms of being able to share files easily. If I go back here, for example, and just sort of pick one and then use the kind of wizard process to say next, you notice that again, the next thing it normally asks you, and you can say just, I want to remember this choice if you don't want it to tell you this every time, is do I want to share it as a link from my OneDrive so that everybody's looking at my one single copy? Or maybe I am, in fact, sharing that outside the organization. So I know that rather than having this person that I'm sending it to have to jump through the extra hoop of having to sign in and connect to my OneDrive, maybe I do just, in fact, want to keep it simple and attach it as a copy. So it gives you a choice of how to do that. But if I said share as a OneDrive link in this case, then once it's here, you notice the most important thing is that there's a kind of a visual treatment here that differentiates this from a normal attachment, which is that there's this little cloud icon that's saying that it's in fact a cloud stored file that I'm sharing a link to. And then here, at least in Outlook on the web, you get this little drop down, which gives you, amongst a couple of things, which one I find interesting is that you can just preview that doc right here in the browser. So maybe I want to double check to make sure that, is this the one? Yes, okay, this is actually the document I was trying to send. So it's super easy to do that without having to crack it open in Word, the desktop app in this case. But again, in that little drop down, more actions, you can do manage access right here. So this gives you that ability here to, again, very simply change the permissions, essentially, on the file that you're sharing, in this case through OneDrive. So you can say the recipients can or can't do editing or viewing only, or again, if you want to be able to allow people to forward it off to anyone inside your org to edit or view, or if you wanted to even allow people to share it outside the org where they could edit or view. Again, these things can be configured by an administrator, but you have that ability to be able to change the access on files as well too. So I think that's pretty cool. Again, that it all shows up in one single integrated experience, I think is pretty nice. Okay. And then lastly, on the mail side of things, then I want to kind of flip over to some calendar stuff to show you as well too, is 2 sessions ago, we did some Microsoft Forms show and tell and talked a little bit about all the great things you can do in Microsoft Forms. And whether you knew it or not, you actually can also do a very simple Microsoft Forms poll in an email. And they just recently switched this at Microsoft. It used to be kind of an add-in, and now it's that add-in has kind of been deprecated and it's sort of just baked in now to this experience. But if you wanted to be able to send an email to a number of people and actually include a poll for them to be able to respond to, the way that you find that is through this little ... right here, and then right here near the bottom, there's this option that says poll. And so when you click on poll, it's just going to pop open this little pane to the right, and it's just going to allow you to be able to author a poll right out of the gate. Something as simple as what's your favorite color, or whatever it is that you are in fact trying to gather some input from. You can very easily just set up a poll here, and then when you do that and you insert that into the email, what happens in this case is they get this link. Actually, depending on the experience for the user, they'll either can have the ability to do it directly in the email, or they don't even have to leave the email experience. They could just vote right there in the email. Or if they're, let's say, outside your organization, you're doing it as an anonymous poll or what have you, then they'll get a link that allows them to crack it open in a browser, similar to what you guys were doing with our poll question today. Okay. So polls too, something that's really straightforward and simple to be able to do, in this case through Outlook on the web. Okay, any questions or anything that have popped up just yet, Stacy?
Just as I was about to say no, is someone came in. Lauren
okay.
asks, do all of these features also work from the Mac? As I find a lot of key Outlook functions are not platform agnostic.
So I don't use a Mac myself, so I can't tell you from my own experience, but I can say that because this is all browser based, and assuming you're using a browser that Microsoft says is supported for all these Outlook on the web capabilities, then yeah, it should all work very much identically, if not the same. I don't know if you have an experience with that as well, Joy, but my understanding, yeah, all based on the browser, it should.
Right. And if you notice, so we have some clients that do work exclusively on Macs, and sometimes Safari is a little persnickety with some teams. And Stacy says yes, she agrees. So you might investigate. I know this is going to sound, this is a risky statement, but just trust me. Try the new Edge Chromium. I promise you, a year ago, I did not think I would ever I'm so sorry. I didn't think I would recommend Edge for much of anything. I'm sorry, Microsoft. I'm so sorry. But Edge Chromium's cool. Stacy, do you use Edge Chromium on your Mac?
Yes, I do. It's been a life changer. It absolutely has. It's been a life changer because I just was using Chrome every day, and it's been, as a marketer, I need to use multiple browsers, and now I'm leaning more and more and more to Edge. Yep.
She's coming to the dark side, people.
Yep.
That's
fantastic.
Yep.
Awesome.
And it's the new Edge, not the old Edge.
Not the
if
old
it doesn't
Edge.
Look like the blue and green swirly wave, you're on the wrong one.
It's a beautiful experience.
Yeah,
you might have
sure
to do an Edge Chromium webinar.
Oh yeah. Oh, my list is growing.
When you go to download Edge today, it's going to only give you the option for the latest and greatest. But yeah, definitely, give it a try. Try using Edge, or if you are using Google Chrome or what have you. But give it a try. Try going into Outlook on the web in those modern browsers, and let us know. Let us know if you find out if there's anything that's not working the way that we're talking about here today, because I'd be interested to understand that. Yeah. Okay, let's pivot over a little bit to, again, so most people think about Outlook at the very least for doing at least two things. Clearly there's mail, and the other side is calendaring. So let's talk a little bit about calendaring experience in Outlook on the web as well. So right down here on the bottom of the screen, just underneath your kind of left pane, you have the ability to navigate back between some various capabilities in Outlook on the web. So we're in mail, and the second one here, as you might expect, is calendar. So if I click on calendar, what you're going to see here again is not earth-shattering or anything, but it's in fact a view of your personal calendar inside of Outlook. Couple things that I'll point out here just kind of right out of the gate, because I think they're interesting. Whether or not they're like extremely useful or not is kind of subjective. But number one, you notice that Microsoft is trying to put a big emphasis on what's going on with you today and tomorrow at the very least. And so while subtle, you can tell that today, June 9th, and tomorrow, June 10th, they're like these extra wide columns here in this week view. So if I go to another view, like here's next week and the week after that, you notice how all 5 days, because I'm in a work week view, all 5 days of these columns are all equidistant, equispaced in this case. But if I go back to today, I'm going to click on this little button here that says today. Again, you'll notice that the way they treat today's calendar and agenda and tomorrow's agenda, they make those columns just a little bit extra wide for you. So I think that's interesting. That's not something that they do in the Outlook desktop app, but in the web app, they try to make it a little bit more prominent for you in this case. So, again, being able to use your calendar for all the basic things that you would expect to be able to do is really straightforward in the web view. Obviously, you can come onto any one of these. So if this was a meeting that was going on right now, for that matter, I can easily click on it. It's going to give me a little bit of a pop-up preview that just gives me a sense of kind of what that is and when it is and so on and so forth. If I double click on that, it's going to pop open to a more detailed view. In this case, there's not a whole lot of interesting information in this particular one, but let's say I go to this one here and double click on it. It may have the fact that, okay, it's a Teams meeting. I can see here's the join Teams info. Notice that when in fact it's a Teams meeting, it's going to give you the big join a Teams meeting button right there. And then even simply enough here, it kind of gives you that, who's accepted or who's not accepted. So you can see here relatively easily who's at the moment planning to attend or not attend a meeting. And again, same experiences here, just like you were on the mail side, is that because I've got access to all these people's profile here, I can hover over any of them and immediately get access to that card. Exact same card experience, just like you saw a minute ago, where I can now, if I needed to, expand this here again, and there's Lydia's info, just like we saw a second ago, okay? So very consistent, common experiences between mail and then coming into your calendar view in this case. But then to create new events, they generally call them events, whether it's going to be a meeting or an appointment or anything like that. To do that in Outlook Web is really easy. There's a big fat button over here in the top left corner. When you click on new event, for example, it's just going to give you kind of a blank sheet here that gives you the option of saying, what do you want this to do? So it's a new meeting. And to invite attendees is also as simple as you just start clicking here. It's going to show you some suggested contacts. That algorithm is kind of driven by, again, who are you regularly working with, meeting with, etc., exchanging emails. So your ability to start adding people here is really super easy to do. If you wanted somebody to be optional, make sure you click on optional. It's going to give you this extra box here now that you can put some optional attendees. And then notice one of the cool things that's happening right out of the gate. Every single time I'm adding new people into this meeting, it's giving me these smart time suggestions that are showing up here. So these smart time suggestions is basically, it's looking at the free busy across all the people that I've invited into this meeting, and it's changing the available smart suggested times based off of when it finds that people are available. So again, if I add some other people, if I add Miriam, for example, here, you notice that it's changing these yet again. If I add somebody else, Adele, it's changing them again. These might all be roughly the same because these are all part of the demo, but again, it's changing them. So I can now kind of click my way through these, and notice on the right-hand side here, it's showing me when that meeting is being set up or potential for being set up. So I don't have to necessarily come in here myself and choose the time. I can just let the service suggest a meeting time for me, which is pretty cool based on people's availability. And in case anyone asks, they may not have been asking or been wondering, why in the world are these showing up kind of 5 minutes less than the hour kind of thing? That's just a setting you can do. You can do that in Outlook or Outlook on the web for that matter. But that's just a setting that you can set. A lot of people kind of like to do that these days. That allows you to be able to set meetings, default meetings times to end early. So if it's like a 30-minute meeting, you can say I want it to end 5 minutes early. So we have that little window in between to transition. Or if it's going to be an hour or more, maybe you have it end 10 minutes early. So you have that time again to transition between meetings. And that's something as simple as, if I just wanted to show you where that is, something as simple as when you go into, I do want to discard, there you go. If you go into your settings here in Outlook on the web, it's this little gear on top. And this is going to show you kind of the default calendar, in this case, because I'm on the calendar settings at first. But if I go down here and say view all Outlook settings, then the thing you're looking for here under event and invitations is this ability to say end appointments and meetings early. So this is not checked by default, but if you come in and check it, then you can say for meetings that are less than an hour, I want them to end, 5 minutes early, 8 minutes early, even 10 minutes early. Or if they're an hour or longer, I want them to end one of these times earlier. And so when you set that, it's going to then take into account every time you create new meetings at this point, it's going to default them to end in that shorter time frame. So if I want to make this, up to an hour or about an hour and a half, let's say up to an hour, you notice that it's a 10-minute short meeting because I set it up that way. So that's pretty cool. Again, you can do that in Outlook desktop or Outlook on the web. But again, so you can very easily say, I'm going to invite some people. Let me just add some people back into this invite again. And let's say, I need to schedule it out for a few days from now. I need to schedule it out by, Thursday or Friday. I can start selecting here and drag and drop this meeting scheduler here on this right-hand pane. And you notice, if you can see it in your screen, it's going to change from this reddish color to this greenish color whenever everyone is available. And so that's also really pretty cool. It's another way to be able to get this sort of smart time suggestions to you based off of everybody's availability. So you can drag that around, which I think is pretty slick. And then probably the most important thing that most people are doing today is you want to also make sure, if you're going to set it up as a Teams meeting, for now, you have to hit this little switch that converts it to a Teams meeting. It doesn't do anything right here in this moment. It doesn't actually change anything in the UI until after you've sent the meeting. So once you send the meeting, it'll actually put the join a Teams meeting link info into the meeting invite in that case. But I believe Microsoft is kind of on the verge of changing that to where that would be the default setting anyway, so that when you create new events, they'll automatically be set as Teams meetings unless you choose for them not to be, because again, so many people are doing that regularly as the default. My understanding is they're going to change that to default anyway. So cool. So wanted to show you again just some things here in terms of setting up invites, how you can check free busy, some of the smart capability there. You always can go to the scheduling assistant. Again, this is up here. This is what most people tend to do, to be able to look at people's calendars. They can see when they're free busy. And again, this is going to be the same information that you would get if you're looking at it inside of Outlook on the desktop as well. You can actually see if people are showing details or if they're just showing pretty busy. You can always use that as well, okay? All right, so a couple of other things I think that are interesting here on the calendar view side is you can always too get a quick view, kind of glance as to what's going on through a couple of really tightly integrated experiences that Microsoft included in the web, which again, right up here in the top right corner where you have your little profile pic and then there's some notification icons and things like that. Of course, this is where we got the settings, is this little icon right here, the second to the left, is the one that's called My Day. And so when you click on My Day in Outlook on the web, it pops open this little pane on the right-hand side. There's two tabs here. So I'm gonna start with this one, the one that says Calendar. So this is going to give you, right out of the gate, it's gonna give you this agenda view, and it allows you to see, if you just kind of keep scrolling, it allows you to see kind of day by day things that are coming up in an agenda view side by side with your calendar, okay? So that's pretty slick. It even gives you a sense of like, if you've got a meeting coming up, it says, well, this meeting is happening now, for that matter. But if that meeting wasn't on my calendar, it would tell me that this meeting's coming up in an hour or an hour and a half, and it would kind of highlight that to you here, which is pretty useful. You can also switch this easily if you hit the dot, dot, dot right there. You can switch this to day view, which is going to take this again to kind of a very similar view that you're seeing in the calendar, but you can switch it back and forth from agenda view to a day view. So again, just kind of keeps track of things that are going on for you relatively easily. And again, you can always switch back and forth too. If I want to go out to, you know, further into the future, I'm going to go out to July, kind of the week after July 4th, and kind of see what's on my schedule. I can very easily do that, get this glance of what's going on. And then notice that when you do that, that this little today button shows up here, same exact button that shows up way over here, by the way. But you can click on today and it'll just kind of jump you right back to today's date in the calendar. So you can get back and forth relatively easily in that respect, okay? So I find that really useful. And then last thing is actually, honestly, just kind of a cute thing, but I think it's cool, is that in Outlook on the web, you have the ability to add what are called charms to your events, which are basically just a little icon indicator of something that might make that event stand out to you in the actual calendar view. So the way that you do that is if you right click on any of these items, you'll notice that you get this option to do edit and, you know, show as busy or free, and you can even do categories and whatnot. But you have this one that's called charm. Again, my understanding is only available in Outlook on the web at the moment, not in the desktop tool. But if I wanted to, you know, okay, if I wanted to mark this here with this little notebook icon, or if I wanted to mark this one here, I'm gonna go, actually that's because that's a group-based item. Let me uncheck this box here for a second. It's always when you're trying to demonstrate something, but suddenly there it goes. Okay, so if I wanted to, you know, again, put a little charm on this here and just have something that makes this kind of stand out visually here again, you see that these little icons show up here next to the items. So again, I think that's pretty cool. Just the fact that it gives you a little bit more kind of visual capability here on your calendar items as well. Okay. All right, so any other questions popping in just yet too, Stacy? Nothing just yet? Okay. All right, so the other thing I kind of hinted at it a little bit a second ago was when you pop open this pane, again, this pane pops open when you click on this icon way up here. It's this thing called My Day. So when you click on My Day, it pops open this pane to the right. So in addition to the calendar tab, you also have this tab called To Do. And again, for any of you that have been following our webinar series, we did a whole webinar on Microsoft To Do as a personal task management app. Which I think is outstanding. If you haven't tried it, you should give it a try. But this integration with Outlook is really super slick because again, what you've got is this little task pane that pops open here. And as you can see here, for this demo user, she's got a whole series of lists that she uses for keeping track of things, not just for work, but even for life in this case, like stuff in her house and around the yard and shopping and so on and so forth. So you can use this little pop-out pane here to be able to easily get back and forth between these various lists in this case, in which case you think to yourself, okay, well, that's cool. I guess if I wanted to be able to, you know, I've got an idea about something and I've got a new idea, I can just add it. Okay, why is that so cool? Well, if it's a new idea that I then want to be able to put onto my calendar easily to kind of remind me about something, I can then, again, through Outlook on the web only, I can take this item here and I can just drag it onto my calendar. And when I do that here, you notice that it drops it out here, at least it's supposed to drop it out here. Let's try it again. I think it's doing it, it's just sort of hanging. There it goes, it's just going super, super slow for some reason. I'm gonna shut off video feed here for a minute and see if that helps with bandwidth. But there you go, so I took this task that I created in that little task pane, and then I dragged it out onto my calendar. It even put a little check mark next to it. See, that's the little charm, right? So a check mark item next to it that indicates that it's a task that I want to try to complete at 9 a.m. for some new idea that I came up with, okay? So that's pretty cool that you have that ability, and that's an integration that you only get through Outlook on the web in this case. So speaking of this task pane again, I'll flip back to Mail just for a second. So we'll go back to Mail and show you that you can also use that same kind of drag and drop capability in the opposite direction. Again, this is something we did talk about during the to-do webinar, but it's worth kind of mentioning it again here at this point. In Outlook on the web, again, you go to this thing called My Day, it opens up that same pane. You're going to see the same two tabs, one for calendar showing you your agenda, and then one for to-do in this case. So what you can do is you can also very easily take any email that historically, you know, everybody's kind of familiar with this notion of flagging a message. So I want to flag that message and flag this one. And so by flagging them, it's something that I'm thinking I need to follow up on that essentially. And if you followed along with our to-do webinar, you notice that to-do has a special smart list that's built in called flagged emails. And when you flag an email in Outlook, it automatically adds that item to this flagged emails smart list in to-do. And I'll uncheck this one here to see if it just does this on the fly. There it goes. So as you can see, it disappears. And if I check a different one here, check, and then it will eventually, assuming I actually checked it. Did I check it? Yeah. Okay. Well, again, it's always when you're trying to demo something. But flagged emails automatically will show in the flagged emails list. But maybe I want to get more organized more quickly than just flagging emails and having them all show up here in this list. Well, again, I can easily take this drop down, change to a, you know, here's a sales list, for example. And let's say I've got this item and I want this item to be something I put in my task list. I can easily just click and drag this item over. And when I do that, notice that it's got a couple of options. I can do add as a task or add as an event. But in this case, I'm going to say add as a task. And when I do that, it just drops that email information in as a task in to do right here just from Outlook on the web. So again, I can take any of these, just quickly drag them. So notice I'm just going to add like, 4 or 5 tasks for myself just within half a second practically, because I just dragged and dropped them over into a list. And I can navigate to a different list, and these are marketing ones, and I'm going to drag these over. And so, that's pretty cool that you can do that and get organized from email into tasks literally within 2 or 3 seconds in that case. What that then allows you to do from here is it allows you to be able to view that message. So if you wanted to be able to say, I want to view the email from which that task came, you can click on that little icon and it pops open the email itself. You can also right click on any of these items and it gives you some other options of things to do, like set reminders or set due dates, or even mark as complete and so on and so forth. So lots of really cool things in terms of the email to do and calendar to do integration through this task pane that pops up. Okay.
Fantastic. We have a question.
Sure.
In reference to the charms, who are the charms visible to?
So they're only something that you can do on your own calendar. So in this case, because they're your event items, they're only showing up on your calendar. If it's an invite that you've sent out to other people, and actually that's a good question that we can check here really quickly. Let me see if I've got one of these here. Actually, let's check this one. This one has, going to edit one of these and add someone who I know I've got easy access to in this case here. Let's do Nestor and send that to him. And then let me just pull up Nestor's calendar here really quickly so we can see. So we go to Nestor and we look at that invite that should be on today's calendar for him.
Feels like we should have a drum roll.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't show the charm for him on that same meeting, because again, the charms are personal to your calendar, per my understanding.
Like a little visual clue. I went through, I've got a lot of events on my calendar this week.
Yeah.
Several of them were training. So I went through and just added the little graduation cap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To those.
Yeah.
So just when I glance, I don't have to read the names. I see the caps. I'm like, okay, those are the training that I'm going to be jumping into. So it just kind of helps me look at it. I don't have to read it. I can just consume visually. Okay, I've got 4 coming up. Awesome. I see them. And it doesn't get anybody else's way.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what that, again, just a little visual treatment just to kind of help quickly at a glance identify what type or maybe what category or so forth of a task of a calendar event that might be. Speaking of that, I will kind of point out at least one other thing going back to mail. So again, this is something that I've only found to really be useful in Outlook on the web. There is this idea of being able to favorite a number of things, and when you favorite things, I'll just kind of collapse this stuff here on the left. They show up in this grouping here at the very top left here under favorites. So your inbox and deleted items and things like that can show up under favorites, but you can also favorite other things. So you'll notice here that I favorited a category. So if you categorize, if you use categories to categorize your email, I think a lot of people do that, and you can right click, for example, and say categorize, and you can define these different categories and you can select multiple ones and things like that. But when you define items of a certain category, so I'm going to categorize a few of these. For example, I'm going to categorize this as outstanding and categorize this as outstanding. Now, if that is a good way for you to be able to organize mail in this case, then you can also favorite that category here so that when you click on that, you notice that right out of the gate, there it is. It shows you all of the email that you've categorized as that type. So that's pretty cool. You can also favorite a person so that, again, similar to what we saw in that profile card where you can go and see at least kind of the most recent email that you've had with that person. This will just continue to show email that you've had from that person because you've now favorited just the ability to see email from that one person. Okay, so rather than having to filter from a search or filter here from your inbox in this case and say I want to filter, from someone, you could actually tag this or set this as a favorite. And then for those of you kind of familiar with Office 365 or Microsoft 365 groups as they call them now, you can also favorite a group as well too. So if I wanted to, I could just simply have the ability to get to this group and then be able to get to, if you were using it for mail, which again, I know most of you are pivoting over to doing Teams for Teams conversations versus mail. But you could get to it here. You could also quickly get to files. You can get to the group calendar and a number of other things like the site and even planner. You can get to all those relatively easily again by just simply having that marked as a favorite. So if I say favorite here, you notice it's suggesting a number of different types of things from people to mailboxes. In this case is an archive folder, an archive mailbox, different types of categories and even groups. Okay. So I think that that's pretty useful too as well. That's something, again, that's fairly unique to Outlook on the web. Okay, anything else popping up? Other questions? Or what about you, Joy? Anything else that kind of jumps out at you as to what have you found to be kind of the simple, wow, that's pretty cool kind of experience for you in Outlook on the web?
So literally moments ago, the realization that I could have the agenda view of my day up in the same window as my email.
Yep.
That because I go between those all the time because, in the world we're in right now, people, can you meet? Can we have a call? Can we do this? And I'm like, yes, we can. I have no idea when.
Yeah.
So it's that constant back and forth. And now I'm like, oh, I can just be typing an email and looking at my days going, here's my availability. without having to play hopscotch between windows.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yes, I could not agree more. And I think that's that kind of thing alone that you just described. That's, one of the things that drew me into really wanting to give Outlook on the web a try a long time ago when I started pivoting to that, was that ability to just, one, two, maybe three things that reduce that context switching so you can just stay focused on what you're looking at. That to me is extremely valuable and really enhances my overall productivity. So again, that's something that I was like, okay, I'm going to keep doing it this way. And now I find that I just wouldn't have it any other way. I want it to be all in that single experience in this case.
I love it. You know what? There's a chance I'm going to uninstall that desktop app.
That's the question I'll get to, whenever we're delivering CIEs, because Joy and I do this thing called a CIE, a customer immersion experience. But when we're talking about various things and when Outlook comes up and I'll spend a few minutes trying to show Outlook on the web, it's the first thing people will ask is like, well, what are the things that you're not getting? And really, quite honestly, I mean, the list is long, right? The Outlook desktop app is extremely powerful and extremely productive tool that people have been using and, kind of live and breathe by if email is what you use for a long time. So again, not to say in any way that you could just completely do away with Outlook desktop, but you might go on that desktop diet, right, and just kind of give it a try and see.
So speaking to my days as a help desk technician about 1,000,000 years ago, the number one cause for a slow startup on a computer or lagging or a computer not shutting down properly is the Outlook desktop because it's a monster.
Yeah. And I'm not a Exchange or kind of Outlook administrative guru by any means, but I do know that, when you're having to deal with like, are you in cached mode? Or are you dealing with kind of a local PST or an OST or, or do you gotta restore that? And I mean, I've heard these things from Exchange administrators for years now. And to me, it just always seems painful, like it introduces pain for people. So again, that's another reason why Outlook on the web, because again, I'm not downloading anything. Nothing is really coming down to my device. It's just there online whenever I refresh the browser. And so I just find that, again, for me, for my workflow and for my style, it just works really, really well.
It's very lightweight. It's very responsive. And again, I mean, if I'm not in Teams, which is probably 75% of my day, I'm probably working on documentation anytime I can fit it in. And then the rest of the time is responding to emails. So that's my bang list of priority. I haven't missed a feature.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I have experimented around over time with kind of trying to start my day off every day where I come in and the only thing I load up is my browser. And I will go to the home page for Office 365 and I will start Outlook. I will start my calendar if I want to just have it in plain view, even though, again, I know I could click here or I can pull this open. I will open To Do so I can look at my to-do list of tasks. And of course, I'll open Teams because I can very easily get to almost everything that you need in Teams through the browser experience, minus a few specific capabilities kind of centered around desktop sharing and things like that. But I'll experiment around with just sort of saying, okay, how long can I get through my day by just clicking through various tabs in this one sort of main browser? And I'm kind of surprised myself. I can kind of last most of the day just here without having to go crack open the Outlook desktop app, without having to go crack open the Teams desktop app, unless you really, really love it, which of course I do. But you can do that here from just a browser. So again, I would encourage any and all of you to give this a try. If it's something that you haven't looked at in a really long time, it's probably worth another look, I would say. So just kind of wrapping some things up here. Joy, what do we got coming up here next week at this point?
All right, next week, Yammer. Rumor is this is the year of Yammer, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna yammer about some Yammer next week.
Awesome, fantastic. Looking forward to that. Yeah, Yammer, if you haven't looked at that in a long time, man, that has just improved tremendously over years now in terms of integration with Microsoft 365 and just a really useful utility for those organizations that find the use for it. But please do connect with us again. We would love to be able to connect with you all. We've got a couple of different ways you can get in touch with us. Email is obvious, but you can also tweet at us or follow us on Twitter. And then those QR codes there actually take directly to our LinkedIn profile. So please connect with us on LinkedIn. And I think that's about it. Anything else, Stacy?
That's about it.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll see you next week for Yammer.
Awesome. Have a great week, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.